Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we are going to be reviewing The Dandelion Audit by Andrew Givler. I'm going to go over my kind of thoughts and feelings in terms of what I thought of the book. I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot without any spoilers, but I will be discussing the plot of the previous book. So if you haven't read Soul Fraud, you may not want to watch this video, although I will dance around any of the big developments. We're also going to talk about the kind of setting and the world building for this book, and then kind of any final wrap-up thoughts. So let's get straight in with the plot. So, what happens in Dandelion Audit? So this is the sequel to Soul Fraud, as already said. This is the second book in the Deck collection, which is an urban fantasy series. So if you are a fan of things like the Dresden Files, which I would say is the major inspiration, you've also got TV shows like Buffy, Supernatural, stuff like that, where the magical, fantastical world is also kind of on top of the human world, of our world. So Matthew Carver is a guy who lives in LA. He's unemployed. He dropped out of college, and in the first book, a demon tricks him into, well, it doesn't trick him into selling his soul. He forges his signature on the soul selling contract. So Matthew has now sold his soul, or had his soul frauded, and this kind of the first book kind of follows like him trying to like embed himself in the mystical world and like try to get his soul back. And he meets a guy called Alex, who is a supernatural journalist. So he is several hundred years old. He has demonic ancestry. So basically people who have demons and angels and whatever used to interbreed with humans a lot. And then it became quite frowned upon, but those that were, there are still the kind of the lineage of those. So they're called Nephilim, and we've got Alex, who's Matt's best friend, and the kind of new best friend. He's got an old best friend who I'm still suspicious of. We have Orion, who is kind of like their supernatural boss. So Orion is the leader of something called the Hunt, which is basically a group of or was back in the old days, a group of Nephilim that would protect humans from things like demons and other sorts of nonsense, dragons, for example. Whereas Matt and Alex have now become members of the Hunt, and they've become members of the Hunt, and they now are training to hunt monsters basically, and they work for Orion, and that's kind of the setup for the start of the book, where they are hunting down a big time demon who has been summoned to Earth to try and deal with the problem of Matthew. And one thing leads to another, and Matthew needs to escape this fight into the fairy realm, the world of the Fae, and because in book one he meets a Fae lawyer called Robin, who helps him get out of a jam, and he also helps Robin out of a jam, and they like owe each other. And Robin basically comes to talk to Matt and is like, well, just to let you know, the Queen of all Fae wants to have a word. And Matt's like, uh-oh. And he's trying to avoid this because he doesn't know what's going on. And the Dandelions, aka the Dandelion Audit, the Dandelions are following him around. So there's dandelions just growing everywhere to try and get him to try to use them as a portal to go and speak to the Queen. So he eventually uses one as a way to escape, and he's whisked away to the Fae Court, where in the Fae Court he kind of makes a deal with Gloriana, Queen of all Fae, to for her to help him recover his soul, And the thing that she wants in return, and this is a very minor spoiler, but it's addressed very early on, so skip 10 seconds if you don't want to know about it, is that he has to marry one of her 4 daughters, and each daughter is the head of a Fae seasonal court. So you've got autumn, winter, spring, and summer. And all of the Fae are very manipulative. They are scheming constantly. They have the same restriction that they do in the Dresden Files, where the Fae cannot lie. But of course, they can say things 1,000 different ways, and you see this with Aes Sedai and Wheel of Time. They can say things in a way that make you think they're saying something else. So we've got these 4 Fae sisters who are all kind of trying to either be a part of or not be a part of this contest. And Matthew is having to choose which one he's going to ally with. There's also some kind of background stuff going on in terms of there is possible betrayal at the Fae court, so somebody is possibly betraying the Fae to hell and the devil, and there's a lot of really interesting like court politics and intrigue, which we didn't get much of in book 1, and I quite like the shift in focus. So book 1 is very much like, gotta get the soul back, gonna have some action, gonna introduce all these magical concepts. And then book 2 is very much like, now you know about all the magic stuff, we're gonna add another layer on top of that of all the Fae stuff, and this whole book is going to be much more about like politics, manipulation, assassination, and while there are still some great action scenes, and I really enjoyed the character development and the dialogue, I did think this book was very slightly weaker than book 1, but I think because it's in such a small focused area, being in the Palace of the Fae, you tend to not the first book felt like it had more possibilities and was a bit more open, and I still enjoyed it pretty much the same, but I think that maybe book 1 was just more of a surprise because I didn't expect it to be as much of a joy as it was. So on one hand, still an excellent book. On the other hand, I think the first one was better, but again, that could just be like newness and surprise at how good it was and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, let's get into characters. So Matthew obviously is the lead, and the books are all told from his perspective. I really enjoyed this book for Matt. I think that you get a lot of little revelations about his family and about his past, which I really liked. I like the deepening relationship that he's developed with Alex. Alex is a really good kind of like foil for Matt, and I would really like to see a book that focuses more on him, because he's been the least important main cast member for like book 2, and I've also read book 3 already, and he's kind of the least important main cast member again in book 3. So it would be nice to get a bit more time with him. Yeah, so Matt is developing a lot in this book. So he is kind of finding out the mysteries about his heritage that he didn't know. As you know, he finds out that he's maybe distantly related to a Fae, which is what helped him do the magic fire hands in the previous book. We've also got him building these relationships with these women in the Fae court. So he's building a relationship not just with Gloriana, with the Queen, but with Ash and Mab and Dawn and Titania. And I really enjoyed that kind of dynamic of him like having all these fractious relationships that are all very different. So like his relationship with Ash seems quite honest and open, but is it actually? And very genuine. His relationship with Titania is very like very manipulative, very it's interesting because she lays out what she wants from Matt basically straight away, and that doesn't really change, but the things that she isn't saying in very much the tradition of the Fae is almost more important and is really interesting to me. Then you've got Mab, who on the surface hates Matthew and doesn't want to be involved in the contest despite her mother forcing it on her. And, you know, there's also lots going on in her past, and there's connections to things that have been talked about in previous books that I found really interesting. And then we also have Dawn, who is the Summer Queen, and Dawn is very much like this kind of flighty, she's like an LA Valley pool girl, like she's kind of this, she's very like, she's like the cool girl at school, you know, she's the head cheerleader, she's the popular girl, she's Cordelia from Buffy, but every single one of them, all of them are hiding something, and whether it's hidden depths or secrets or things they've done in the past or things they're planning or scheming to do. Really enjoyed all of those characters, and Matthew's relationship with those characters changes throughout the book. So he has like, oh, I think this one's an idiot, I think this one's an asshole, and then at the end of the book, you know, the opinion is really changed. So really liked that, and I thought this was a great improvement as well, in that this adds a lot of interesting and nuanced female characters to the cast of the books. So yeah, really pleased with that. Well done, Andrew, on adding those female characters. We even get more going forward as well, which is really good. The one character negative I would say in this book is that we spend no time with Connor and Violet. So they're kind of a big part of book one, or the subplot about Connor and Violet, I guess, is one of the main subplots in book one. And we just, because the whole of book two really takes place in the Fae realm, we don't really get to spend any time with them. I was interested in seeing where that was going. Obviously, I told you guys, I think, that I had a theory in book one. So I think I might have had to dance around it in book one. But one of the things that Matt gets in the soul sale, is that the girl that he loves, which is Violet, which is his roommate's fiance, she falls in love with him, and that's a big part of some of the tension in the side plot stuff in book one, and that kind of disappears in book two. But my theory, right, this is my theory, is that Connor, who is Matt's roommate, so Connor's really successful, right? He's a finance bro, and this is important because Hell is structured like an investment firm, so they have to trade and buy souls and all this sort of stuff. They've got soul markets and all, and like the head honcho of Hell is referred to as like the CEO, and the guy who's been tasked to sort Matthew out is the CFO of Hell. So there's lots of finance bro terminology around Hell, right? I don't think that Connor is a demon, but I do think that Connor sold his soul for Violet and his finance bro career. So that's my theory, right? Is that Connor sold his soul, and that Violet and Matt were in love, she loved him, and they hadn't got together yet, or maybe they even had. They hadn't got together yet, but Connor was like, I'm in love with Violet too. I want Violet. And she doesn't care about him. Because it seems there's very little love between the two of them across the books. All of the emotion is between Matthew and Violet. And is that because the books are from Matthew's POV? Maybe. But I think that Connor sold his soul, and that's where Dan the Demon got his lead on Matthew being like depressed and a good target for soul fraudery. So that's my theory around Connor and Violet and Matthew, and I do hope that that gets proven correct in later books, because I've never been as certain about a theory in a book ever before. I feel like Andrew Givler is giving us loads of really good clues that this is the case, especially like the way that Connor and Violet's relationship seems quite fractious. Anyway, so yeah, I would like to see more Connor and Violet. I'd like to see more of the real world of LA, but it's also, having read the next book, which is set in the real world, it's quite interesting that we're taking a little bit of a break away. My one thing is maybe that break could have been at a later book, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in book 2 that sets up stuff for further books. So I think it's much of a muchness, really. I think that if you are the kind of person who read the Dresden book Summer Night and you were like, ugh, this is the worst, this might not hit for you, because it's kind of similar in that Matthew does spend the majority of the book in the Fae court, and it's all about Fae politics. But for someone like me, and I really enjoy Fae stuff, I really enjoy politics, that really worked for me. The interesting world building stuff we get in this one is kind of about the fantasy multiverse in these books. So like places like, you know, the Fae world is its own multiverse, its own universe, its own realm. Places like Asgard are their own realm, Olympus their own realm. So really interesting, and I expect that stuff is going to get expanded upon, because I've read a couple of chapters of book 4 and they're already talking a little bit about it. So really hoping to read more of book 4 soon. And yeah, I think that the world building stuff with the Fae was really good, and the like building up of, so like the overarching like storyline in book 1 felt like it was going to be Matt's got to get his soul back. And while Matt's got to get his soul back is kind of Matt's main drive, there's also a like universal level threat introduced in book 2, which I really liked. And this is through the like Key of Fortunis. So when you read about that stuff, you'll know kind of what I'm talking about. And yeah, really enjoyed that introduction of this, you know, like new Uber plot, if that was the sort of thing. So like in the Hybrid Helix series, we have like the old ones that live between the stars, and like that's like the overarching plot, or like the big bad, I guess. And that's kind of what the deal is with this one, the new big bad that's introduced, which I really liked. So to summarise, I think that we had a really strong book this time. So the plot for me was actually the plot was just as good as book 1. I think it was really, I was going to say weaker, but it wasn't. I really enjoyed the politics and the Fae court manipulation shenanigans. Characters just as good. Really enjoyed the development for Matt, and learning more about his backstory and about his history and heritage. Really liked the introduction of all the new characters. Every new character is good. Really enjoyed them. I liked getting to know more about Robin. Robin is a lot of fun, and I like spending time with him, and I would like to see more of him. And luckily he's in book 3 loads as well. He's not going to die. He's great. So incredibly mild spoiler, I guess, sorry. But yeah, to sum up, this was a genuinely really excellent read. If you like the Dresden Files, if you like urban fantasy like Buffy and Supernatural and that sort of stuff, I do think you really owe it to yourself to read this series, and it is all on Kindle Unlimited. And unlike a lot of indie books, this has a really good audiobook. So book 1, I read mostly audio and then finished the book by reading physically. I read the last like 30%. And then book 2 and 3, I think I read entirely via audio. And the narrator, Matthew Moeller, is excellent. Both books I rated 4 stars so far. I have also rated the third one 4 star, but let's not talk about that yet. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. So yeah, really enjoying this series. I've already started book 4 as well. So, you know, I don't even remember the last time that I read 4 books in a series in like a month and a bit. So if you are interested in urban fantasy, if you love the Dresden Files like me, then I do think you owe it to yourself to pick this series up. And like I said, the audiobooks are genuinely really good. So if you love the audiobooks on Dresden, I think that Andrew Givler and his team have put in a lot of effort to make these audiobooks just as good. So definitely give them a shot. If you like this video, on the other hand, I would love it if you give this video a like. And of course, because this is book 2 in a indie fantasy series, I imagine that basically nobody will watch this review. So I would love it if you would share this with your audience, with your friends. If you've read book 1, then please do share the book 1 review as well, which you can find linked down below. This will be on a playlist as well, so there'll be a playlist of all the deck collection videos. If you've enjoyed that, if you enjoyed this video, please do share it around. That would be really grateful. I'd be really grateful for that. And also tell Google that you like this video by liking it and by commenting down below, and whether you've read this series, whether you want to read this series, anything else you want to talk about. And finally, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Subscriber growth has been weirdly slow for the last 2 weeks. Got like 5 subscribers a week when normally I get 10 to 20. So the more the merrier. Please do subscribe. I really appreciate every single person who signs up. And thanks so much for watching. I'll speak to you tomorrow.